This is information we already did in chapter 19, Helen. You weren't supposed to do this chapter. All right, so the different ingredients in baking. This is all a review for you, Helen, because we just did this with chapter 19. Okay, strengtheners. They provide stability and ensure your baked item doesn't collapse once you remove it. Okay, flour is the main one. Eggs are also strengtheners. Okay, so the gluten, the protein in the flour is what helps develop the strength and the structure. All-purpose flour is between pastry and bread flour. Bread flour has the highest amount of gluten. Cake flour has the lowest amount of gluten. Durum flour is really hard, and it's made from wheat. It's used to make breads, and it's higher than bread flour, the gluten content. Pastry flour is in between bread and cake flour. Semolina flour is a type of durum flour that we specifically use for pasta. Okay, shortenings and fats, their purpose is to make your baked goods moist, add flavor, and keep your baked item fresh longer. Again, this is all review for you, Helen. Okay, leaveners, they let your baker's ingredients rise. Leaveners, chemical ones, okay, chemical ones put carbon dioxide in it. Chemical are baking powder, baking soda. Baking soda, okay, has to have liquid and an acid, whereas baking powder, you don't need an acid because you already put the acid in there. It's baking soda with an acid already added to it, typically cream of tartar. So it needs liquid and just heat in order to work. Okay, some other acids that might be present in there are like lemon juice. Okay, if your thing has lemon juice in it, you only need baking soda, not baking powder. Physical leaveners, they put air into your batter. Okay, like whipping up egg whites, it's a physical leavener, creates air. The creaming method, you beat the fat and the sugar, and that helps incorporate air. So cakes and cookies are utilizing the physical leavener of air, and maybe some other chemical ones too. The foaming method, you beat egg whites, and you can do it with or without sugar. Angel food cake is an example that uses that. Organic leavener yeast is a microscopic fungus. It's alive, that's why it's organic. It needs warm liquid and sugar to activate. And when it activates, it gives off like carbon dioxide and alcohol. Other baker's ingredients, sweeteners, they add flavor and color. Okay, for example, as sugar caramelizes and turns into caramel, it turns brown. Thickeners, they are combined with the stirring process to help thicken things. It determines the consistency of your finished product. Eggs are typically a thickener. Cornstarch too. Gelatin. Flour does a lot of things. Arrowroot, which is starch from a tropical kind of root. Okay, flavorings, they affect your baked items' taste and color. So cocoa, spices, salt, extracts like vanilla extract, almond, etc. Okay, liquids, they're one of the most important things in baking. They provide moisture and let your gluten develop the correct way. Water, milk, cream, molasses, honey, and butter all fall into the category of liquids. Baker's measurements, okay? Standardized recipes for bakery products are called baker's percentages. Or formulas. Flour always has the proportion of 100%, and the percentages of all other ingredients are calculated in relation to the flour. Okay, so the formula for baker's percentage is the weight of the ingredient divided by the weight of the flour times 100%. Okay, a yield is how much of something's produced. Like this recipe yields 24 cookies. It makes 24 of them. Sifting will help add air to your flour, your cocoa, your confectioner sugar, or powdered sugar, and it helps remove lumps too. Okay, so hopefully some new information for you. Okay, lean doughs. They are made using only flour, yeast, water, and salt. Those are their ingredients. Rich doughs, same thing as lean doughs, but you can add shortening or another tenderizing ingredient like sugar or eggs or milk. Okay, so cinnamon rolls use rich doughs. French bread use lean doughs. Okay, kneading helps develop the gluten in the dough, gives it that stretch that it needs in order to be able to rise properly. If your bread doesn't rise properly, you probably didn't knead it. Okay, that sounds like a pun. The straight dough or mix method can be used to make all yeast breads. Okay, so it can be used to make lean or rich or sponge. Mix all your ingredients in a bowl, and then mix and knead it. That's it. You just mix everything together and knead it. The sponge method, you mix your yeast, half of the liquid, and half of the flour to make like a spongy looking thing. After it rises, you put the other ingredients in there with it. So the rest of the liquid, the rest of the flour, everything else too. And that's how you do the sponge method. Some other types of dough. Sourdough, it's made with a starter made with water, yeast, and flour. It's made with a starter of water, yeast, and flour that has been fermented until it smells sour, and typically you just do this overnight to make sourdough. Okay. To make yeast bread, you want to scale the ingredient if you have the baker's percentage for it. Then you mix and knead your ingredients. Fermentation, okay, you do your first rising in a warm spot, like it's called proofing. You put it in an oven that you probably turn the air off of. So you set it to like 200 degrees and then turn it off and then put it in there and shut it. That works to proof it at home. Then you punch down to get rid of excess carbon dioxide in it. You portion it out into the size that you want for each loaf or roll. You round it, you shape it, okay? Then you do your second proofing, okay? Put it in another warm spot until it doubles again. Then you bake it, and then you cool and store it. Okay, so quick breads and cake batters. Quick breads, you did part of this project. Use chemical leaveners rather than organic ones like yeast. And then it doesn't need a rising period like biscuits and muffins, which are group made. Okay, a batter is a semi-liquid mixture containing flour, liquid, and other ingredients. Typically has more fat and sugar than a dough and usually is thin enough to be poured. The 4 methods for preparing quick breads. You already know this, but the creaming method, you cream your fat and sugar to produce a very fine crumb like yellow cake. Foaming method, you foam your egg whites and sugar like angel food cake. The straight dough, you combine all ingredients at once, like with the muffins and cornbread. We also call this the muffin method. The two-stage method is made for high ratio cakes. It has a higher ratio of sugar than flour, fine crumbs, very moist. Devil's food cake is an example. Okay, icings have three main functions. They are a protective coating around the cake to help keep it moist. They give some flavor and richness to it because fat is very rich and tasty. And they improve the appearance to make it look prettier. Okay, buttercream is made of sugar and fat. It can be made with butter, or it could be made with shortening, or it could be made with a combination of the two. Fondant is a shiny icing that has a non-sticky coating when it is dried. Marshmallow fondant is an example of the kind that you could make in class if you wanted. Ganache is chocolate and cream, that's it. Glazes are drizzled rather than spread. They're typically made of powdered sugar and some sort of liquid. Royal icing is sugar and egg whites. That's what we use to make the gingerbread houses. Okay, steamed pudding and souffles. Steamed puddings and dessert souffles are made of batters that require special handling. Steamed puddings are more stable than souffles because of the greater percentage of eggs and sugar in the batter. Okay, souffles are lightened with beaten egg whites and then are baked. Baking causes the souffle to rise like a cake. As it rises, moisture evaporates and the light batter will set temporarily. But then if you have too much noise or whatever, it can cause it to fall, which is why they're like, oh, souffles are so gentle. Okay, pies. We already learned about 3-2-1 dough and Foods 1. I know that was a long time ago, but that's when you learned it. It's used to make pie crusts made of 3 parts flour, 2 parts fat, 1 part water. They should be flaky and tender and flavorful. Baking blind is when you bake an empty crust, when you have to poke holes using a fork, and for extra insurance, you should weight it down with some pie weights too. Some ghetto pie weights that you could do would be like parchment paper with some rice on top of it, or something that won't burn necessarily in the oven. Cheesecake is made from cream cheese or quark, which is a cheese that's a lot like sour cream, and eggs, and you put it on a crumb crust, typically using a springform pan so that it will come out. Okay, pastries. The roll-in dough method is used to make danishes or croissants or puff pastry. That's what we did when we made puff pastry. It can be used in both sweet and savory applications. Use phyllo dough to make baklava, which is made with thin pastry, nuts, and honey. And then pot au choux we made in Foods 1, where you do water and butter, and then you add flour and eggs into it, and you can use it to make eclairs, cream puffs, profiteroles. We made profiteroles. Okay, cookies. They use the same creaming method as quick breads and cake batters, but with the liquid and flour are added at the same time. Due to their high sugar content, they are best when they are baked in convection ovens, which was a test question that you took. Why are you doing this chapter? The 7 makeup methods for cookies, okay, are dropped, which chocolate chip or oatmeal or those kind of bagged, ladyfingers or eclairs, rolled sugar cookies that you cut out, any ones that you cut out, molded, include like peanut butter, icebox or refrigerator cookies, which are the kind that you put in there and then you slice, like shortbread is an example, bar cookies, which you can pretty much make anything a bar cookie, and sheet cookies are brownies. Okay, all about chocolate. Chocolate is made from cocoa beans, which are picked from cacao trees. Okay, people process it by roasting the cocoa beans. They crack the beans into really small pieces called cocoa nibs, which are the basis of all cocoa products. Beans are crushed into a paste that is unsweetened and called chocolate liqueur. Chocolate liqueur can be ground to give it a smoother texture or pressed to separate the liquid from solid materials. The liquid is cocoa butter, which can be combined with chocolate liqueur to make eating chocolate, or flavored and sweetened to make white chocolate. The solids are further ground to form cocoa powder, which we use in a lot of baking applications too. Okay, storing chocolate. You should wrap it up carefully and keep it in a cool, dry, and well-ventilated area. Don't refrigerate chocolate. Refrigeration makes the moisture condense on the surface of the chocolate. Not good. Sometimes a white coating, we call it a bloom, appears on the surface of chocolate. That indicates that some of the cocoa butter has melted and then recrystallized on the surface, which isn't good. If you store it properly, chocolate will last you for several months. Cocoa powder stored in tightly sealed containers will keep almost indefinitely. It will literally almost never go bad. Okay, tempering chocolate. Tempering is melting chocolate by heating it gently and gradually. Okay, to do this, chop it into small pieces and put it in a double boiler or a stainless steel bowl over water. Simmer it on very low heat till it reaches 105 degrees. If the chocolate becomes grainy or scorched, get rid of it. That means it's seized, not good. Tempered chocolate will coat items with an even layer and then harden into a nice shiny shell. That's what you want. It can be drizzled or piped out into designs with a piping bag for decoration, or it can be used as a glaze. Right, frozen desserts. Quality ice cream has a custard base, like what we made in Foods 1. Melts easily in your mouth. It doesn't weep or separate when it softens at room temperature. Gelato is the Italian version of ice cream. Unlike it, it doesn't have eggs, though. Sherbet has milk and or can contain milk or egg for creaminess. Sorbet has no dairy, just fruit juice or puree with sweeteners and other flavors or additives. Frozen yogurt has yogurt in addition to the normal ice cream ingredients. Okay, to poach fruit, combine fruit with a liquid, usually a mixture of sugar, spices, sometimes wine. We can do that, so we did a nice fruit punch. Okay, we did this though. Heat the fruit and liquid together until your fruit is tender. Use fruits that are firm enough to hold their shape during cooking, like peach or pears. We made peach melba at the beginning of the year. A tort is an elegant and rich, many-layered cake, often filled with buttercream or jam. Normally, pastry chefs use genoise, which is a French sponge cake, when they make a tort. Okay, dessert sauces and creams. Vanilla sauce, which we call crème anglaise, is a classic accompaniment for soufflés and steamed puddings. It's made with eggs and vanilla and whatnot. Fruit sauces can be raw or cooked depending on the desired flavor, like coulis, like a raspberry coulis, which made a fresh berry sauce. Okay, fruit syrups are cooked sugar-based juice. Chocolate sauce is a family of sauces and syrups with cocoa or melted chocolate as the base. Pastry creams are used as a filling for eclairs. Bavarian is 3 basic ingredients: vanilla sauce, gelatin, and whipped cream. Okay, plating and presenting. Good plate presentation requires careful attention to different colors, shapes, textures, and arrangement of food on your plate. You eat first with your eyes, then with your nose, and then finally with your mouth. So things should look good, smell good, and then taste good. There are 2 areas of presentation. First, the food itself. Second, the plate, the platter, or the dish as a whole, what it looks like. When plating desserts, everything on the plate should be edible. It's best to plate the dessert decoration in 3s because that tends to be appealing to the eye. We like odd numbers over even numbers. Don't know why, we just do. All right, that's the end. There wasn't a lot of new information from our baking chapter, chapter 19, that you did with us, Helen. So this was a big cop-out, and I'm not very happy about it.